films, cassettes. Gosh, I miss those times, man.
If I ask you to think of an iconic attack helicopter, there are very few people's brains that wouldn't immediately think of the Apache gunship. While initially designed as a dedicated ground attack helicopter, these bad boys have been used in pretty much every type of military engagement since their inception. Everything from tank busting during the invasion of Iraq, to counterinsurgency roles over the skies of Afghanistan. The AH-64 has done it all. While designed and built primarily in America, the Apache was widely exported, and the first country to get their hands on one of these bad boys were the Israelis. They received the AH-64A Peten, which when translated to English is simply Cobra. The AH-64A is the original production variant, and lacks the iconic Apache longbow radar which was added to the later D variant. Due to the modern geopolitics of Israel, the Peten saw very little tank busting, but did see a lot of counterinsurgency work in Lebanon, mainly targeting Hezbollah. While the Israelis have ordered some of the newer AH-64Ds, they still retain a large fleet of AH-64As, and use them to this day. While it costs Israeli taxpayers several $1 million to get one of these bad boys, in War Thunder, it will set you back $60. This is due to the AH-64A Peten being a Rank 6 American helicopter premium, sitting at battle rating 10.7 in realistic and 10.3 in arcade battles. As I said, this is a Rank 6 premium, so you can grind out all ranks of the American helicopters. But it is worth noting, there are only 7 American helicopters in the game, so compared to a Rank 6 tank premium, which can grind out around 30 vehicles in a tech tree, paying $60 to grind out 7 helicopters isn't particularly great good value for money. But about more details of the helicopter. Well, being a premium vehicle, it obviously has a crew train cost of 10,000 silver lions, and has pretty low repair cost as well. In realistic battles, it will only set you back 2,500 silver lions to repair. While normally I would recommend the Expert and Ace qualifications, in helicopters, it isn't really that beneficial. Regardless though, to get the Expert qualification it will cost you 1,670,000 silver lions, and for the Ace qualification, that's 2,800 golden eagles. Going on to the reward modifiers, and in realistic battles with a premium account, you'll have an RP modifier of 696% and a silver lion modifier of 780%. In terms of customization, you have a single camouflage available to purchase for golden eagles, with no camouflages available on the Gaijin marketplace. The Peten has been quite controversial, as it has pretty much 95% of the capabilities of the much higher AH-64D, the top tier American helicopter. Compared to the Soviet Ka-50, the Peten has thermals, laser guided weaponry, and air-to-air missiles. But with all the powerful self-propelled anti-aircraft systems currently in top tier of War Thunder, is the AH-64A Peten worth buying? Well, stick around to find out. Alright, so moving on to the performance and armour, the Peten can achieve a top speed of 300 km per hour at an altitude of 1000 meters, and you can climb to a max altitude of 5400 meters. However, this is highly unadvisable, as it makes you a sitting duck for enemy self-propelled anti-aircraft systems, as well as enemy fast movers. Due to the Apache being light, it responds very well to input, in both the yaw and roll axis. This allows you to swing the helicopter around, and frankly, gives you great agility. This was one of the key design features of the Apache. It was to carry a large weapons load, but still be fast and highly agile, allowing it to kick ass, but avoid enemy air defense systems. But what about the survivability? Well, frankly, this is one of the major downsides of the Apache series of helicopters in general, as they weren't really designed to be armoured. You can see here that we do have some Kevlar, which is mounted around the cockpit and does offer some limited protection for the pilots. This Kevlar is around 20mm thick and provides around 23mm of effective armour. However, 12.7 and 14.5mm heavy machine guns should be easily able to penetrate this armour, so it's only really effective against small arms fire. Moving on, we do also have some bulletproof glass. Note however, this is only for the pilot's cockpit, and the gunner's seat does not have any bulletproof glass. Again, it only provides around 25mm of thickness, so it will only really protect you against small arms fire, mainly rifle caliber machine guns. So bearing in mind the performance of the Peten, how should we play this helicopter in game? Well, it's fast, and as we'll see shortly, packs a massive punch. Due to this, as well as the presence of very sophisticated air defense systems at top tier ground forces battles, I recommend staying very low to the ground, and using the terrain to mask your approach. This protects you from both optical tracking, as well as radar systems. Due to your decent climb rate, you can then pop up above trees or hills, fire a couple of missiles, you can then turn and use your agility to duck out of the way of any incoming missiles. This isn't foolproof however, and the SBA systems on the ground do have the upper advantage. Doing this tactic will usually get you 1 or 2 kills, but most enemies that you have killed will probably spawn in an SBA system and knock you out of the sky. This isn't really a criticism of the Peten, and is a frequent occurrence in all helicopters of all nations. Now that we've covered the speed, protection and playstyle, let's cover the weaponry. Alright, moving on to the weaponry, arguably the best part of any vehicle, and I think it's best to start by mentioning that the Peten does not have any type of radar installed. Unlike the later D version of the Apache, the AH-64A does not feature any sort of air-to-air or air-to-ground radar. This isn't the end of the world, as radars mounted on helicopters aren't particularly useful in-game. What the Peten does have however, is forward-looking infrared cameras, also known as thermal imaging. This greatly aids in target acquisition, and in my opinion, is much better than radar. We also have flares on board, which allows us to carry both flares and chaff. This somewhat counters the threat posed by infrared and radar guided weaponry. We also have an IRCM pod. This is an optoelectronic station which protects us against various infrared seeker types. Put simply, it blinds incoming infrared missiles such as sidewinders and makes them lose track. This isn't particularly useful for us in ground realistic battles, but in the helicopter arcade mode, it is an invaluable counter to the early air-to-air missiles. But going on to our weapons itself, and our stock weapon is the 30mm M23OE1 cannon. You can carry a total of 1,200 rounds, and you have a fire rate of 620 rounds per minute. The gun can traverse 86 degrees either side of the nose, and has very good vertical guidance characteristics, with 60 degrees of gun depression and 11 degrees of gun elevation. You also have a rather unique round. This is the high explosive dual purpose. It is essentially a 30mm high explosive anti-tank shell, giving it a constant penetration of 51mm. So keep that in mind, this is a chemical warhead, not a kinetic warhead, so the ballistics and velocity of the shell itself doesn't determine the damage the round will do. It does only carry a very small amount of TNT filler, only 27 grams. This isn't enough to one-hit even the lightest of vehicles, but with that high fire rate of over 600 rounds per minute, you can shred even the most heavily armed main battle tanks, if attacking them from above. We then also have a few weapons carried on the hard points of this aircraft. First up, we have the Hydra 70 M247 rockets. These are pretty fast, travelling at 739 meters per second, but contain a rather low TNT warhead of 1.19 kilograms of TNT. They have a high explosive anti-tank warhead, giving them a constant 290mm of penetration. However, due to the low TNT filler, the post-penetration damage isn't amazing. You can carry 19 of these Hydras in a single pod, and can carry a maximum of 4 pods, giving you a total of 76 rockets. This would be the stock configuration on most helicopters, but seeing as this is a premium, we have all weapons unlocked. That brings us on to our next missile, the AGM-114B Hellfire. This is an early variant of the famous Hellfire missile, and it travels at 475 meters per second, and contains a TNT warhead containing 3.1 kilograms of TNT. As you'd expect, it has a high explosive anti-tank warhead, giving it 1,100mm of penetration. As I said though, this is an early variant of the Hellfire missile, and is nowhere near as powerful as the much later AGM-114K Hellfire found on the AH-64D. The latter missile, the 114K Hellfire, has a slightly larger warhead, giving it 1,200mm of penetration. While this doesn't seem significant, the latter missile in my opinion has much more post-penetration damage, and the AGM-114B Hellfire found on the Peten does seem to struggle at top tier, at least in terms of getting reliable one-shot kills. But how do the Hellfires work? These are laser-guided missiles. You laser designate a target, and the missile will either fly directly at that target, or climb into the sky and come down on top of them. This all depends on the range to target. At close range, the missile will travel directly at the target, and at slightly longer ranges, the missile will climb and then drop or fall onto the target, arguably doing more damage as it impacts on the roof, where there is much less armour. You can carry 4 pods of Hellfires, each containing 4 missiles, giving you a total of 16. We also have some air-to-air missiles. These are the AIM-92 Stingers. These are essentially man pads, or man-portable air defence systems simply strapped onto the side of a helicopter. They have a rear aspect lock range of 7 km and an all aspect lock range of 4.5 km. They are infrared guided and have a maximum load of 10 Gs. They have a very low warhead, only containing 540 grams of TNT. These missiles definitely work a lot better at long range. Firing a Stinger at a close range opponent will almost certainly result in a miss, as the missile struggles to track, so you want to be firing these missiles at pretty much 4 kilometers or longer. In my opinion, the best loadout for the Peten is the 4 Stingers in combination with the 16 Hellfires. As I mentioned in the last segment, you want to take off, stay low, and pop in and out of cover, firing a Hellfire, getting a kill, and then relocating. Be unpredictable. You can use your thermal imaging to rapidly acquire targets, and your Hellfires to easily knock them out. If you notice you're getting spiked by an enemy radar, pop some flares and chaff, and rapidly relocate the area. The loadout of 4 Stingers and 16 Hellfires theoretically allows you to deal with any opponent you will come across, be that helicopter, tank, SBAA, or an enemy jet. But I do have to say, boys, self-propelled anti-aircraft systems are dominant in War Thunder, and I wouldn't expect to be getting major amounts of kills in this aircraft. But to conclude, the weaponry of the Peten is pretty good. It carries pretty much the exact same loadout as its bigger brother, the AH-64A, albeit using slightly less modern missiles. Before we get into the conclusion, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the Peten, and what tank, ship, plane or helicopter you guys would like to see reviewed next. To be honest lads, the days of the helicopter premiums are pretty much gone, apart from the KA-50. No other premium helicopter just comes close to the amount of carnage you can cause to the KA-50. Not only does the KA-50 have arguably the best ground forces lineup, that being the Soviet top tier tanks, but the Kamov helicopters carry the legendary Vikia missile, which is a combined anti-helicopter, anti-plane and anti-tank missile, as it features a proximity fused warhead. These missiles are the reason that the KA-50s, and the KA-52 for that fact, are so dominant in War Thunder, as not only do they have good performance, but they also have a great team backing them up generally speaking. While I'd say that the Peten is a better helicopter than the KA-50, it has thermals, the Hellfire missiles, and dedicated anti-aircraft missiles. You never really see the Peten doing that well in game. It usually gets clapped pretty easily by stuff such as the Tunguska, and other AA vehicles such as the Flak Wagon. It's hard to say this is because the Peten is a bad helicopter, or because the age of the helicopters is pretty much over in War Thunder. Self-propelled anti-aircraft systems are just so powerful now, that getting any more than 1 or 2 kills in a helicopter is basically just pure luck. If one of the people you kill spawns back into a Tunguska, your life's pretty much over. For the price of $60, I do not think the Peten is a good purchase. You can only grind 6 other helicopters in the American tech tree with it, so you're essentially paying $10 per helicopter, which is pretty inefficient if you ask me. But if you do want to essentially just skip the grind and want to get a top tier helicopter, apart from using slightly less modern missiles, the AGM-114Bs instead of the 1114Ks, then the Peten is a good buy. It isn't highly effective on the battlefield, but if you just want to throw some cash around and have a bit of fun, the Peten does not disappoint. And while in ground forces battles helicopters are pretty bad these days, in arcade assault maps, which is where the footage you've seen in the background of this video is from, they are still incredibly fun. This game mode is players vs AI, so all the enemies I killing are essentially just AI players. This is alright for grinding, however it doesn't reward as much as actual in-games. Be sure to let me know down below what you guys thought about this video, and what you think about the AH-64A Peten. If you did, please do consider... Alright lads, I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel. You can also leave a like and a comment, which again, also boosts me in the algorithm, helping my channel to grow. You can also follow me on Twitter, as well as Twitch. And if you're a huge fan of the channel, you can become a member of the YouTube channel, which will give you a unique icon next to your comment, in both comments under videos and on YouTube live streams. Once again, thank you very much for watching this far into the video lads, and I'll see you in the next one.